I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Rachel Zegler had hoped to silence her critics, but what she posted instead lit the match that sent everything up in flames. In a now viral video filmed from what appeared to be her bedroom, the Snow White actress looked into the camera with a mix of frustration and defiance. She insisted that despite all the hate she's received online, people still show up, still line up to support her work. Her tone teetered between teary-eyed vulnerability and passive-aggressive indignation as she defended her performance and called out the negativity that's followed the project since its announcement.
When I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere, and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
She spoke with the confidence of someone trying to reclaim her narrative, but the internet had other plans. Within minutes, clips from the video were circulating like wildfire. TikTokers stitched it with reactions ranging from disbelief to comedy skits.
Excuse me, your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you?
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
While X, formerly Twitter, descended into full-blown chaos. Instead of offering the redemption arc she hoped for, Rachel had unknowingly handed her critics a goldmine.
Snow White, budget $250 million, box office $43 million. Oh, but it's only been 2 days, give it a chance. No, I'm not gonna give it a chance. I'm not even talking about that number. Because like all the flops are unsurprising at this point. Something is going on behind the scenes with almost every major animation, video game, and movie studio that they're doing this intentionally or something. I don't f***ing know. I'm not even gonna talk about this. People are like, oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
The hashtags told the whole story. #Snowflop, what should have been a heartfelt defense, was seen as tone-deaf, self-centered, and out of touch with the reality of the film's reception. This wasn't a surprise to everyone. Many online had been waiting for this moment.
Alright guys, I watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Now first things first, Snow White gets her name not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm. Her father and mother are king and queen to a utopian communist society. I'm not joking, guys. Everybody shares and is mindful of what each person is getting, and we spread our resources evenly, which is where this idea of fairness, as Snow White is the fairest of them all, is really presented in the film.
Some even celebrating it. Screenshots of review bombs, meme threads mocking her statements about not needing a prince, and out-of-context clips from old interviews all resurfaced like clockwork.
I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie, Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
What was meant to be a fairy tale comeback had become a digital witch trial. And in their eyes, the villain wasn't the evil queen, it was Rachel herself. People didn't forget the earlier press interviews where she laughed off the original 1937 Snow White as weird and creepy.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. And then
dismissing its romantic core as outdated. Those clips had aged like milk. But the online backlash wasn't just talk, it translated into cold, hard numbers. Snow White opened to a stunningly weak $45 million at the domestic box office. For a Disney live-action remake, let alone one that carried the historic legacy of the company's first animated film, that number was shocking. Especially when compared to The Little Mermaid, which despite its own controversies and online debates, pulled in a healthy $95 million on its opening weekend. Box office analysts weren't just concerned, they were stunned. Some called it Disney's biggest miscalculation in years. Others flat out labeled it a flop. Either way, the numbers didn't lie. And the consequences were immediate. Major theater chains began to quietly pull the film from their biggest screens, slotting in higher-performing features and pushing Snow White to less desirable showtimes. Some locations dropped the film entirely within its second week. For a company like Disney, known for dominating the theatrical market, this was uncharted territory. And for Rachel, it was a public unraveling. Even Disney's marketing machine couldn't save the narrative once audiences had already turned away. Then came the Oscars.
Please welcome Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
In what should have been a celebratory appearance, Rachel walked the red carpet alongside co-star Gal Gadot. The tension was thick. Photos and videos of the pair showed a distinct lack of warmth. Gal barely acknowledged Rachel during press appearances, standing stiffly and avoiding eye contact. Observers online noticed immediately. Body language experts and gossip blogs were quick to point out what Disney PR had hoped to downplay. These two women were not on good terms. Not anymore. And insiders later confirmed that Gal Gadot, while contractually obligated to promote the film, has since chosen to quietly distance herself from the project and its star. What made it worse was that Gal Gadot's own reputation seemed untouched by the fallout. She continued booking roles, securing brand deals, and appearing at industry events without controversy. Rachel, meanwhile, found herself increasingly isolated, praised by a handful of die-hard supporters, but drowning in a sea of criticism. Her Oscars appearance was meant to be damage control. Instead, it cemented her position as the face of Snow White's failure. All the goodwill that once followed her from West Side Story had vanished. Her attempt to modernize a classic came across as disrespectful. Her confidence now read as arrogance, and her effort to reclaim control of the narrative backfired spectacularly. What was supposed to be her breakout leading role had become the very thing that fractured her public image and perhaps her entire career trajectory. Rachel Zegler's viral meltdown may have been the spark, but the fuel had been building for months. As soon as the box office numbers began to collapse, people online wasted no time digging back through old interviews, bringing every controversial moment back into the spotlight. Chief among them, her now infamous take on the original Snow White. In clip after clip, Rachel could be seen rolling her eyes, dismissing the 1937 classic as weird and outdated, scoffing at the romance, and insisting her version would be nothing like that. She proudly declared that the new Snow White wouldn't be saved by a prince, wouldn't dream about true love, and wouldn't be just waiting around. But instead of being celebrated for a feminist retelling, she was mocked for missing the point, and for trashing a film that generations have cherished. The backlash wasn't just from trolls or fringe voices. Longtime Disney fans, the ones who buy the merch, attend the parks, and show up opening weekend, felt insulted. Parents said they wouldn't take their kids to see a movie where the lead actress had openly disrespected the original. Grandparents posted TikToks explaining how the original had touched them as children, and why they had no interest in seeing it reimagined by someone who seemed to have nothing but disdain for it. Even neutral viewers began to pile on, criticizing not just the tone of Rachel's comments, but her attitude throughout the press tour. Words like smug, entitled, and out of touch flooded every comment section. And unlike many stars who weather public criticism with grace or manage to rally industry allies, Rachel found herself completely alone. There were no public tweets of support from co-stars, no directors defending her, no heartfelt posts from fellow actresses talking about how hard the industry can be. She was isolated, an eerie silence where even a single gesture of solidarity would have made a difference. But none came. Instead, the absence spoke volumes. Hollywood, it seemed, was already stepping back. Behind the scenes, that silence turned into real consequences. Reports started trickling in that Rachel's future projects were now being reconsidered. One studio insider told a trade outlet that while she was initially in talks for multiple high-profile roles, the conversations had slowed down significantly. There were whispers of entire marketing teams reevaluating whether she could still anchor a campaign. Was she bankable? Would audiences buy tickets to see her? Or would they associate her with backlash, poor press, and disappointing box office numbers? It's a harsh reality, but one that Hollywood has always operated by. Perception is everything. And Rachel Zegler, once positioned as the fresh new face of Gen Z stardom after her breakout in West Side Story, was now being viewed as a cautionary tale. Her rise had been meteoric. The applause from critics, the Golden Globe win, the praise from Spielberg himself, it had all painted a picture of the next big thing. But with Snow White, all of that momentum vanished. Her image, once radiant with potential, had soured. Worse, this wasn't just a one-off, the fallout was compounded by timing. In an age when audiences are more opinionated than ever and more willing to vote with their wallets, Rachel's controversy wasn't just bad PR, it became a symbol. To some, she represented everything wrong with how legacy films were being reinterpreted. To others, she became a symbol of celebrity ego unchecked. The point was, people weren't just avoiding the movie, they were rejecting her. Insiders say Rachel's team is scrambling. Publicists, agents, and managers are reportedly trying to reframe the narrative, pitching Rachel for redemption-style profiles and soft press appearances. But the damage might already be done. It's hard to walk back viral clips, and even harder to rebuild trust with audiences who feel burned. The industry has seen stars bounce back from worse, but only when they've had the humility to apologize or the charm to win people over again. And so far, Rachel hasn't offered either. She's doubled down, lashed out, and stayed defiant. And with each move, the path to recovery gets narrower. Some are already calling it the Hollywood It girl, who was once supposed to carry Disney's next big franchise, may have just become one of the most spectacular flops in recent memory. Not because of one bad film, but because of the choices she made when the spotlight was at its brightest.